He wakes up on a cold, vibrating subway floor. The fluorescent lights above him flicker in harsh pulses, the kind that make reality feel like a cheap illusion. The train screeches into an underground station, and for a moment, he thinks he's dreaming. People step around him without looking, without asking if he's okay, as if he's invisible. His palms are sweating. His heartbeat is sharp and unfamiliar, like it belongs to someone else. And then the realization hits him like a collapsing building. He has no idea who he is, no name, no memories, no past. The man sits up slowly, gripping the metal pole in front of him, trying to anchor himself to something real, but nothing is. Not the seat he's on, not the voices around him, not even the clothes he's wearing. A clean shirt, a jacket, nothing that gives him the slightest clue. When he reaches into his pockets, hoping for a wallet, an ID, a receipt, a stranger's business card, anything, he finds them empty. As if whoever lived inside this body left no trace, as if he was dropped into the world, fully assembled but unfinished, with the internal blueprint missing. The subway doors slam shut and the train roars forward. He doesn't know where he's been or where he's going. He only knows this. His mind is a blank screen. He stands unsteady and stumbles onto the platform at Bowling Green Station. The crowd moves like a river around him. He looks up at the signs, at the tiled walls, at the digital clock blinking 6:37 a.m. Nothing sparks recognition. Nothing pulls him home, because he has no home, or at least not one he can remember. He begins walking, guided only by the instinct that staying still might be more dangerous than moving. The city towers around him like a maze built for someone else. Minutes blur into hours. He wanders through Lower Manhattan, past businessmen, food carts, street performers, police sirens. Every sound feels amplified. Every face feels like it might know him, or worse, might not. He keeps searching for something familiar, a sign, a building, even a smell. But the world is a stranger, and so is he. He touches the back of his neck, feeling for a scar, a bump, anything that might explain the emptiness in his head. He walks into a police station because he doesn't know what else to do. He explains as calmly as he can that he has no memory of who he is. The officer behind the desk looks at him like he's joking. People don't just lose their past, not like this. But this man has. He tries to speak about where he came from, where he last lived, who he last spoke to. But every question is a locked door. Every answer is silence. They fingerprint him. They check national databases. Nothing. No matches. It's as if he's never existed. For the first time, he feels fear. Not the sharp kind that comes from danger, but the slow, suffocating kind that comes from a void. He sits in the waiting room, staring at his hands, trying to imagine what kind of life they had lived. Did he play an instrument? Have a wedding ring? Have a job? A family? A secret? He doesn't know. And the not knowing is a kind of torture. When the police tell him there's nothing more they can do, he steps outside into the evening air. The sun is low, washing the skyscrapers in gold, but he barely sees it. He sits on a bench and tries breathing slowly, hoping that somewhere in the rhythm of his heartbeat, a memory will surface. But nothing comes. He is a man built entirely of questions. He finds his way to a hospital, then to a psychiatric intake center. The doctors ask him to describe what he feels. He uses words like fog, emptiness, static. He talks about sensations that make no sense, a faint accent in his own voice he can't place, an instinctive knowledge of the subway system he shouldn't have, a muscle memory in his hands for things he can't remember doing. He feels like a puzzle that's missing half its pieces, but still somehow forms a picture. When the staff gently asks his name, he stares at the blank space where that answer should be, and waits for a spark that never arrives. Finally, someone suggests a placeholder, Doug, and because he has nothing else, he accepts it. Days turn into weeks. He's placed in a shelter, then in a facility for people with cognitive trauma. The walls there are painted soft colors, meant to calm, but calm is the one thing he can't find. Every night he lies awake staring at the ceiling, trying desperately to remember even a single moment from before that subway train. A birthday, a mother's face, a childhood room, a fight, a laugh, a wound. anything. But his mind remains silent, as if someone turned off the lights and walked away. Strangers begin investigating his past. A social worker, a neurologist, a filmmaker who hears about his case and becomes obsessed with the mystery. They all want to know who he is, the man with no memories, the man whose identity dissolved overnight, the man who, for all anyone can tell, was born the moment he opened his eyes on a moving train. When Doug agrees to be filmed, it's not because he wants attention. It's because he hopes that seeing himself on camera might reveal something the mirror cannot. The filmmaker follows him through his days, group therapy sessions, walks through the city, attempts at learning simple tasks. In every frame, Doug looks both present and absent, like someone half awake in a dream they can't leave. But the deeper the filmmaker digs, the stranger the story becomes. The more Doug speaks, the clearer he becomes. Articulate, educated, perceptive. He understands complex ideas. He expresses emotions with precision. He remembers facts, concepts, but not experiences. It's as if someone wiped out the personal movie of his life, but left the encyclopedia behind. Doctors suggest dissociative amnesia, the mind wiping memories after severe trauma. But when they look for evidence of trauma, they find none. No injuries, no physical signs, no missing person reports matching his description. Nothing. Weeks later, someone tracks down a lead, a clue buried in a British database. A man named Doug Bruce, born in London, living in New York, a former art student, a wealthy banker. A man who vanished from his apartment the same morning the amnesiac appeared on that subway train. When they show him a photo, he studies it carefully, almost respectfully, but without recognition. The picture could be anyone when he is taken to meet people who claim to know him, friends, acquaintances, even an ex. He watches their reactions with a kind of sorrow. They hug him, cry, touch his face, as if pulling him back into a world he slipped away from. But Doug stands still, detached, apologetic. He tells them he doesn't know them, and he doesn't know how to begin knowing them again. As his past begins to reconstruct itself around him, the real mystery only deepens. His colleagues describe him as brilliant, disciplined, intense. His friends describe him as distant, private. His ex describes him as charming, but difficult to reach. The more they reveal, the clearer it becomes that the old Doug was a man living two lives, one public, one hidden. Rumors begin to spread that the amnesia isn't real, that Doug staged everything, that he disappeared from his life because he wanted to, that he created a blank page because he needed one. The filmmaker records every accusation, every whisper, every doubt, turning the story of a man with no identity into a psychological labyrinth. Some believe he collapsed under the weight of his past. Others believe he escaped it. Others think something darker, that the man who woke up on that train wasn't born of trauma, but of intention. But Doug never flinches. Every time someone accuses him of faking, he meets their gaze calmly, almost gently, as if he understands their need for answers. He simply repeats the same quiet truth. I don't remember. I wish I did. One night, months after the subway incident, Doug walks alone across the Manhattan Bridge. The city glows around him, millions of stories unfolding in windows he'll never know. He stops halfway across and leans against the railing, staring down at the dark water below. He feels the vastness of the world pressing against the emptiness inside him, and for a moment he wonders which version of himself he would rather live with, the man he used to be or the man he has become. When the filmmaker's documentary is finally released, it ignites a firestorm. People debate the case online, dissecting every gesture, every phrase, every interaction. Was it real? Was it a performance? Was Doug a victim of his own mind or a master of reinvention? The real-life Truman Show, unfolding in front of millions of strangers, each trying to decide whether they're watching a tragedy, a mystery, or an act. But Doug remains quiet. His life moves forward in small steps. He learns new habits, forms new connections, builds new memories. The old ones remain locked away, like a vault he lost the key to. And as the years pass, the mystery fades from headlines, but never fully disappears, because the truth is never confirmed, not by doctors, not by friends, not even by Doug himself. A man woke up on a subway train with no past, and in the absence of answers, the world filled the void with speculation, suspicion, hope, fear. But the only person who could solve the mystery, the only person who could unlock the story, was the one man who no longer remembered living it. And so, the line between truth and illusion blurs until the story becomes something else entirely. A reminder that identity is fragile, memory is unreliable, and a life can vanish without a single witness. A reminder that sometimes the greatest mystery is not the unknown world around us, but the unknown world inside us. Doug Bruce, the man without a past, never found the missing pages of his story. But he did something else. He kept living, step by step, day by day, as if the present was enough, as if the future could stand on its own, as if the past, whether lost or abandoned, no longer held him captive. And somewhere in the city that swallowed his former life, the subway trains still rumble through the tunnels. Millions of passengers ride them every day, unaware of the man who opened his eyes one morning and found himself reborn, not by choice, not by fate, but by an inexplicable silence in the mind. A man who walked into the world as a stranger, even to himself. The real-life Truman Show didn't have an ending. It simply faded into the fog from which it came. But the question lingers, haunting and unresolved. Did Doug lose his life, or did he escape it? Only he could ever know, and he doesn't remember.